The Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives revealed a new plan for Ukraine. Ukraine attacked Russia's S400 battlefield in Crimea. Lacking weapons and manpower, Ukraine's fighting spirit seriously declined. Former CIA expert says mobilization law in Ukraine does not affect the battlefield situation. The Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives revealed the additional aid bill for Ukraine. The new bill proposed by U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson includes $61 billion in aid and the provision of ATACMS long-range missile systems to Ukraine as soon as possible. Guardian reported that U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson announced on April 17 that he had decided to pursue a plan to bring bills on foreign aid, including aid to Ukraine and Israel, to a vote in the House of Representatives. House of Representatives on April 20. Following significant feedback and discussion from members, the House Rules Committee will soon post the text of 3 bills that would fund the national security interests of the United States, Ukraine, Israel, and allies in the Indo-Pacific, including the aid lending structure, Mr. Johnson said. The bill mentions a $26 billion aid package for Israel, $61 billion for Ukraine, and $8 billion for U.S. allies in the Indo-Pacific. A separate provision of the bill says that the U.S. will provide ATACMS long-range missile systems to Ukraine as soon as possible. However, President Joe Biden can postpone this decision if it is detrimental to U.S. national security interests. If the House passes these aid packages, the bills will move to the Senate for a vote. In February, the U.S. Senate approved a foreign aid package worth $95 billion, which includes some provisions similar to the new bill introduced by the House of Representatives. If the Senate approves the new bill, it will continue to be sent to President Joe Biden to be signed into law. For his part, Mr. Biden declared his support for the bills introduced by Mr. Johnson. He urged Parliament to quickly pass these bills so he could sign them into law. The House must pass the aid package this week, and the Senate must act quickly afterward. I will sign it into law immediately to send a message to the world: we stand with our friends, and we will not let Iran or Russia succeed, the White House owner emphasized. U.S. aid to Ukraine has been stalled since the end of last year due to disagreement in the U.S. Congress over continuing to spend tens of billions of dollars on Kyiv, while Washington needs budget for domestic priorities such as border security. Pressure is mounting on House Speaker Mike Johnson. Late last month, hardline Republican Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene filed a petition to dismiss him. For months, Ms. Greene warned that she would recommend a vote to remove Mr. Johnson if he pushed the House of Representatives to pass a Ukraine support package. He should not approve more aid to Ukraine, Ms. Greene said. Despite the pressure, Mr. Johnson recently announced that he would support additional aid to Ukraine in the form of loans. Mr. Johnson's views also received the support of former President Donald Trump, who will certainly become the presidential candidate representing the Republican Party in this year's election. Ukraine attacked the Russian S400 field in Crimea. Newly released images show explosions and at least 3 Russian S400 launchers destroyed at Zankoy Airport on the Crimean Peninsula. Video released on April 17 showed a series of large explosions that occurred early in the morning of the same day at Zankoy Military Airport, north of the Crimean Peninsula. The pro-Ukrainian military ZSU War account on Telegram said the raid took place in 2 waves. The opening attack was aimed at the S400 air defense missile site, destroying 3 ammunition trucks, launch pads and a radar station. The second attack targeted equipment repair and maintenance facilities at the airport, but the extent of damage was unknown. Natalia Humeniuk, spokeswoman for the Southern Operations Command of the Ukrainian Army, stated that Zankoy Airport was a legitimate target but did not give details of the attack. Russia regularly moves equipment between areas to deal with the risk of raids, but is not always successful, she said. Images posted on social networks later showed at least 3 ammunition trucks and launchers destroyed. Rybar, a pro-Russian military account with more than 1 million followers on Telegram, said that Ukraine used at least 12 ATACMS ballistic missiles in the attack. The Russian Ministry of Defense has not commented on the information. Zankoy Airport is located more than 140 kilometers from the front line, is an important military airport and logistics hub of Russia on the Crimean Peninsula. Not only is there a serious shortage of ammunition and manpower, Ukraine is also lacking something even more important than weapons: the fighting spirit needed to win the war with Russia, according to Politico. In recent interviews with Politico, Ukraine's political leaders admitted that both military and public morale are falling, and that although they all try to stay optimistic, disappointment with the West remains present in every conversation. Asking a Ukrainian soldier whether he still believes the West will stand with Kyiv in the fight against Russia as long as necessary makes the question suddenly become extremely cliché when asked. For weeks have passed since the last time this soldier's artillery unit had ammunition left to shoot, Politico said. But Ukrainian forces are running out of weapons and ammunition, especially artillery shells. The stagnation or slow delivery of Western aid packages to Ukraine has also led to Ukraine now lacking something even more difficult to provide than artillery shells: the fighting spirit needed to win. Politico commented, "The morale of the Ukrainian army is very bad, depressed by the incessant bombardment of the Russian army, lack of advanced weapons and huge losses on the battlefield," according to Politico. In cities hundreds of kilometers away from the front, the enthusiastic crowds of young people who lined up to enlist in the early months of the war have disappeared. Today, it is a harsh truth in Ukraine that many eligible young men find ways to avoid the military draft and instead spend their days in nightclubs. Many people have fled the country. The picture that many people are now seeing in Ukraine is of a country falling into disaster, Politico said. When Politico asked Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba whether he felt the West had abandoned Ukraine, his answer was clear: "Yes, I do." President Zelensky even expressed despair when he said that Ukraine will lose the war if the U.S. Congress does not quickly intervene and provide aid. Even as President Volodymyr Zelensky asserted that Ukraine was trying to find a way not to retreat, military officers still tacitly accepted that they would not be able to avoid more losses this summer. The only question is how bad that loss will be. Russia has arguably never been closer to its goal than now. Several unnamed senior officers issued a grim warning to Politico about the potential collapse of the front lines this summer as outnumbered Russia launches an expected massive offensive in when the fighting determination of the Ukrainian armed forces was weakened by a severe lack of supplies. Former CIA expert points out the meaninglessness of the mobilization law in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky's signing of the domestic mobilization law will not affect the battlefield situation, according to former CIA expert Larry Johnson. On April 17, in an interview with Izvestia, Mr. Johnson said that the meaninglessness of the military mobilization law was emphasized by the removal of demobilization privileges, creating the risk of causing problems in training new recruits. Additionally, the lack of additional resources, material and human, will exacerbate the problem. The above expert concluded that these soldiers will not be trained and ready to operate as an organized group for at least 6 to 8 months. So this is a senseless and desperate act. President Zelensky signed the law tightening mobilization on April 16. One day earlier, this document was signed by Chairman of the Ukrainian Parliament Ruslan Stefanchuk. The law will take effect in 1 month. On April 11, the Ukrainian parliament passed a law tightening mobilization. Accordingly, mobilization measures will be tightened, including introducing penalties for evasion and clarifying the subjects that must be mobilized. The law does not regulate demobilization. It will incorporate information about personal data of Ukrainians, including internal and foreign passport details. Martial law in Ukraine takes effect from February 2022. At the same time, Mr. Zelensky signed a decree on general mobilization. Next, the Ukrainian parliament continuously extended the validity of this law. Most men between the ages of 18 and 60 are not allowed to leave the country.